Alright, so here we are still with Dragon Pass. The next scenario is almost the same as the first one. And I don't really want to do it. It's called the High Tide. Basically, you're using almost the same forces, almost the same victory conditions. Well, it involves the Lunars having to take Bold home, but okay. The only thing it adds is missile combat rolls. So we're going to go to the next one and use both those rules. This is Argrath's return, and I'll go into what's going on in this, but we've got some new kinds of units that were removed from the other. First of all, we have the missile units, which have an asterisk up here next to their combat factor. They don't have a range factor in particular for this. This is just the army name factor. Nothing in this game has a range factor, except this guy has a 0, which I may need to look up. Oh, these guys do too. I may need to look that up because that has some effect on play, I think, to have a 0 in range instead of an actual strength. Yeah, I'd better look that up. But let me go on with some other things that we have here that have changed. I think the other big thing that we have as a factor is that we're adding parenthesized combat strengths, which are individual people. Now, they're not going to count against your stacking, so their combat strength gets added into the battle strength. Well, that's pretty potent when you're looking at not the 4 here, but a 20 here. And that underlined factor, that also has an effect. Why don't we look those up? So combat factor underlined needs no support in chaparral. I think there is no chaparral in this game. It's from Nomad Gods. There are some aspects in the rules that don't apply to this one. Nomad Gods never got a second edition though to fit with this one. So you'd have to kind of refit it to these rules, I guess. We have another factor here, which is these exclamation points. And for each exclamation point, you add a point of strength to each unit in melee combat. Why don't I explain the missile combat before I get on to that 0 movement allowance? We also are going to have underlined, 0 range, underlined movement allowance, which is going to mean something too. Okay, so missile combat, though, I can touch without looking anything up. What you're going to do is basically when you in combat, before you actually do the melee, the defender gets first shot here instead of like melee where the attacker gets the shock advantage, right? And he can count up all the asterisks involved in the battle. And that'll be his missile factor. And then he rolls a die on here. Now, there are penalties to the die roll. Obviously, there's also the possibility for a positive modifier to the die roll. I don't know where that... Oh, there we go. If any units are giants or llama clans, herds, or ancestors. You know, some of that's going to be tough to find. Giants is easy, but I don't know about llama clans. I might have to look at the back of counters to notice that. We've got the terrain modifiers here. These are unit modifiers. It's hard to hit a dragon. It's hard to hit ducks, whatever, you know. Okay, but the results on there are 1DD, 2DD, 1DE, and 2DE. So a 1DD disrupts a unit, a defending unit. It'll flip over like that. If you take 2 disruptions on the same unit, that's going to kill it. So if you take a 2DD, the person receiving the hits might lose an entire unit instead. DEs, however, are going to be eliminations of the units. Now, I believe the person receiving the hits chooses which units take the damage in this case. Okay, let's see what else we have. We have that underlined movement. Did we see that? Yeah, that doesn't matter. Oh, that's underlined combat. That's up here. Okay. What about underlined movement? Heroic movement. Alright, we're going to have to explain that if I can find the reference to it. I think it allows for faster movement in the game. And then the final thing is a range factor of 0. Okay, defensive spirit magic. So as long as you have any range factor, if we get to spirit magic, which we won't be in this scenario, you're allowed to use your magical factor in defense if you have a 0 range factor, any range factor really. Okay, so now what do we have? Oh, we got another one here, which is these ducks here have this little water symbol on their movement, and that means they're able to walk on water. All right. Marshes only cost them 1 movement point. They don't pay a penalty for the rivers, and they're allowed to walk on lakes. I have one down here, but not much in terms of waterways. They can't end their turn in a lake, though. Anything else interesting here? How about parenthesized combat? Doesn't mean anything. The single creature, I don't believe is of any importance. Those are really actually heroic characters. All right, I'll be back a little bit later because I have to look up some of these issues that I discovered looking at the counter. Okay, so let's start looking at some of these. The underlined movement, the heroic movement, that's because it's such a small amount of people, usually 1, but in the case of these things, I'm not sure it's 1. These are dragon tooth runners. I'm not sure what they are. They may be converted. They may be dragon newts serving Sartre or something in very small bands, but I don't know the history of them. Maybe there's information somewhere in a compendium here, but I don't think so. Okay, so all these things that are sort of considered heroic, which is not quite this, but it has that heroic movement, only pays 1 movement point for each hex they can move through because they're able to find easier paths and everything. You're not moving a whole army. This little infinity symbol here in the magic number, we're not playing with magic in this one, but it makes him invulnerable to magic just in case you're curious about that indication. I think I already explained the exclamation points. Those are leadership values. Each exclamation point you have adds 1 to the combat strength of each unit, I think involved in the battle, but it may just be the stack. I'll have to look that up again. Okay. Unfortunately, the heroic movement's not covered under the heroes. We have this section on heroes and superheroes. These 3 are all heroes, and one of them is a superhero. Harak's the superhero. And he's the one with the big 20 hit points, combat strength. So first of all, these heroic guys are strong enough that they can fight in battle as if they're a full unit, and Harak is exceptionally strong. And they fight in melee. Now, superheroes are invulnerable to magic. That's what we have there. So here's the thing. If your hero or superhero is eliminated somehow, and you don't have to have these guys stacked on top of your stack in order for them to fight. And remember, you get to rearrange your stack at the beginning. But someone like Harak, who absorbs 20 hits on top of your stack, means that your stack is pretty much immune. He's pretty damn potent. Wow. Look, the Lunars have nothing like that. What's that going to mean for the game? Well, it turns out that this is one where Sartre is going to be trying to take everything. Kind of like they did last time, but here they're meant to. So whenever one of these heroes dies, on a 4, 5, or 6, they escape, and they return to the board in a hex with one of their stacks, close to where they were killed. A superhero dies only on a 3 or higher. Escapes on a 3 or higher. Now, superheroes can have friends, and in this case, Harak's best friend is this Gunda. If Gunda dies, Herrick is pissed, and he goes berserk and will hunt down the unit that killed him. Basically, one particular unit will be marked with a scapegoat label, and he must try to move to that unit and try to hunt it down and kill it. I'm not going to go too much into the effects of all of that. And then we have some, historical discussion of the different heroes. Oh, the Dragon Tooth Runners. They were a gift of Argrath from an ancient dragon. Normally they're teeth. Okay, so here's the deal. The prince doesn't have to play them on the board. He can throw them down wherever he likes and sort of summon them into battle where he is. Now, if they're eliminated, they won't come back, but they have pretty decent movement, the Heroic Six, so I don't know any particular reason why you'd want to hold them off board. Okay, now, as to the actual scenario we're playing, I haven't set it up yet, of course. It's this Argrath's Return, and again, Sartor's going to be able to set up in here, and the Lunar's anywhere outside. But their goal is holding on to Sartor cities. So, the victory conditions for this one is in 5 turns. We're going to have this rally phase. So remember, you have this disrupting or disordering. Well, during your rally phase, you undisrupt, so that damage doesn't remain. You're not on your weakened side for long. Okay, so the Lunar player wins by killing Prince Argrath permanently, or if he takes at least one Sartor fortress. Now, by that it includes the ones he starts with. Basically, Sartor has to conquer the Lunars, not the other way around. And Sartor gets to set up first. You can see there's a decent amount of forces, so there's no... It's kind of hard to tell, can a big stack hold out against against Sartor long enough? Anyway, I'm going to do my setup, and we'll start playing. It probably shouldn't take any longer than the last video did, although the play of the game will, because there's more counters, but I'm going to be focusing in less on, certainly on the melee combat. Another indicator, Argrath, shit, where is he? I've got him on top of these things, has an asterisk here. That indicates he, in his magic section, that indicates he has an exotic ability, which you have to look up. And in his case, the exotic ability is, and he's got a number of them actually. He's got the Dragon Tooth Runners. He's able to cancel out the glow of the Lunar Empire. The Lunar Empire has an area where the powers are greater. It's loosely delineated by that pinkish red area, but that's not in play yet. And then he also has the ability to take control of giants and use them as allies, and that's all. Okay, and this is my initial setup. You can see there's a lot of Lunar troops, and that kind of worries me. I think it's going to be pretty damn tough, even with these really potent leaders, to just wreck the Lunar army completely. We saw that it faded away pretty quickly, though. Being able to attack from multiple angles, etc., could get us up pretty high on this magic factor table, and that big 20 isn't going to hurt one bit towards it, nor are the leadership values. I've got the prince with what look like kind of guard cavalry, his best cav here, a bunch of other stuff. He's got some missile armed troops. I don't know how much. I may have put that there by mistake. I think he's got the majority of the missile armed troops, but I'm not sure. Some infantry and cav here. He's got some missile armed troops too. I sort of spread them out. I'm not sure that's wise. Whereas the Lunars actually have theirs all collected in one place back here. This is kind of what I'm looking at as the most likely counter-strike location that I'm going to hit through. Now, right now I've got leaders on top of these armies, but you probably want to think about what kind of leadership you want, etc. When you actually run up against an enemy. My plan for the prince is for him to go take Duck Point and then come across. I got my ducks here where they can cross the river and maybe provide some additional strength against there. But I've only got 5 turns to do this as the Sartre player, and that to take everything. And well, not everything, but I got to take both of these and Duck Point, and I can't lose anything. I've left some garrisons. Oops. Let's move that there. In the background. That may be, you know, spreading my forces too thin, but I've got to worry about the potential of lunar forces kind of, you know, taking a counterattack, especially from the north. It looks pretty clear they're not going to attack from here. Sartre gets to go first, and I think we'll start tomorrow. Probably making a few mistakes here in terms of not so much the rules, but the tactics of how you set up a battle situation. And certainly I made some errors in setup itself when I see how I'm actually playing this. Wait, 1, 2, boink. 3, 4, I guess. I forgot to move him. Didn't move these guys either. Get at least one of them moving up. All right. So I'm going for, you know, multiple stacks attacking one stack. The unfortunate thing is here I left Gunda, her, I'm not sure. I think it's a her, but I don't remember. Stack it was out here, and it's really difficult to move it. I could have split it up, but I couldn't have gotten more attacks on this. So I went for as much combat capability against this as I could get. A big stack has some resilience, though. However, only the first 3 units attack in combat, but the rest are vulnerable. So there is some danger now to big stacks. Now, you're allowed to retreat before combat as long as you leave a covering force present. So I didn't really go into that in the rules aspects. If I do a full rules introduction, I will. These ducks probably shouldn't be here. Let's keep them under here. So in particular cases, for example, these ducks are over here. I have some missile units. Oh, those aren't missile units. There's a missile unit. I have some missile units that I'm going to take care of before the actual combats. Now, I believe I'm not sure. I think you resolve each combat sort of simultaneously in terms of the steps. So what happens, say here, is I look through and I find my one missile unit, and he's probably a waste over here. And yes, the counters and hexes are too small for this kind of pawing through to be happening. Should probably have external displays and little counters for that. So this guy's got a single asterisk for his missile weapon, but he's facing a fortress. This is why it's pointless. The fortress is going to give me a -4 to the die roll for missile combat, and a single star means a 1. I can't possibly hit him. And this is not a factor there. So the missile combat there is just not going to happen. And yes, I have my tweezers, but I'm going to move my camera to my left hand. I can never pick up the bottom one. All right. What about over at this stack? I've got 3 ducks down here. They give me 1 each. Okay, so I've got a total of like 6 missile on this. It's in a stockade. That means -2. I said 6 missile and -2. That I can actually do something with. Ooh, yeah, they're all in a stockade. -2 is going to be a 4. I'm going to get to deplete 1 unit. It's the defender's choice, but he might as well take it on the top unit. Well, might as well take it on the bottom unit. The reason for that, and this is the weirdness of the combat system, is all casualties are going to come off the top first. So if there's a smaller unit, you want it on the bottom, even just because it might not be reached in terms of the damage that's done. And it will get a chance to recover during that player's turn. On the other hand, a 2 first might allow a larger unit in the bottom to survive. Yeah, I'll put it that way. I don't know. I don't think it makes much difference. And now I'm going to resolve the regular combats. Since I've got heroes and such not, I'll calculate them out here. So this is 18, but then I got to keep going through the stack. 22, 28 from this stack, plus he's got a leadership bonus. And I'm going to have to look up what that leadership bonus does. I know what it does, sort of. What I don't know. Stacked with it. So I don't remember what my number was. It was 18, 22, 28. It's each unit? Okay. 28, 29, 30, 31. And these aren't actually leaders, so 32, 33. So I've got a 33 firepower from that stack, but at the same time I've got another 12 here. So that gets me to 45. I don't know what happens on Ridge. Let's see if there's a wraparound on the table or something. There is. If the total is not a listed value, find the lost figure by multiplying the total after dropping any fractions by the combat multiplier, which is from a die roll. So we were at 45, and I guess that's how the chart works. 1/6 all the way up to 1. Neat. Okay, so 45 divided by 3 means 15 hits. That's going to wipe out the Sartor. And in order to capture the territory, I have to do some sort of advance, but I have the Blitzkrieg ability, so I can jump in there because these are faster units. All right, I'll resolve this one too. We'll go as far as the missile fire. I thought I had 6 missiles here. 3. Yeah, I have 6 missiles. We already did that. So I'll just do the combat there. Notably, this stack has a big 20 on it, but the other stacks have points on them. So if the units survive, the attacker or the defender can pick other stacks to cause casualties to. Some of these guys are in the river, so their factors are going to be halved for attack and such not. It was on the 45 table in a quick advance. Now I could restack again, but there's no real advantage to that. Now one thing about the game, there's an option to the game that I like playing with, because that way, not that this is an odds-based game where you can really factor everything in, but you can't look at the opponent's stacks. But it is only optional. Alright, we're going to be going over to the Lunar turn, and it looks to me like they have a hell of a hard time in this scenario. But maybe my crappy Sartre setup is going to make it tough for them, make it a little easier for them. I don't know if they can even attack. They may, unless they see something, you know, maybe like Gunda here, that they think they can get an advantage on. And then remember, if they do that, they spark the Berserk Rage. Okay, I found something in the combat system which I didn't understand, which hasn't affected anything in either game yet. Units with combat factors that want to be in the battle cannot be after the 4th major unit. So basically, if I have a stack and I have some heroes that I want in it, I have to expose them to damage before any of the units that are below the 3rd major unit. I don't have to put them on the top of the stack, but I have to have them close enough to the top that they actually have a shot at taking damage. Not an issue yet. I'm working on the Lunar response. I'm not really sure what to do here. I don't want to think too hard in a game like this. I'm going after Gunda, but I was also considering, hey, do I want to deal with this? Is it possible that I can get around that 20 hit point barrier that the hero can put by putting himself in front? And I was making sure that he didn't get, that I couldn't skip him or something like that, and it doesn't appear that I can. Okay, so the missile fire that was used here, both sides got missile fire. The defenders got to fire first. They did nothing, even though they had a 2-point missile fire. The attackers managed to get a 2 DE, and I took the infantry on that. Then the die roll for the combat itself, I don't remember what we were at. I think it was 35 points. It was a maximal 6, which means I do as much damage as I'm worth. And that knocks out everything. So all these base units go away. But the question is, what about Gunda? Well, Gunda is killed unless she rolls a 4, 5, or 6. And she does, so there will be no scapegoat here. Put her over there. And she's fine, and now I got to decide if I want to advance, and I probably do, but I'm not. In order to reduce damage results, the defender has the opportunity to retreat. In a sense, the attacker also has the opportunity to withhold units. So basically, you could just throw the top 3 units in. There's something kind of weird with this. Let me explain what happened first, just to be... So we did some missile fire. The ducks didn't do anything here, but here and here, both sides had successful fire. We had an elimination from the Sartre stack. And remember, the person being inflicted upon gets to choose here. And we had a couple of disruptions here that are going to be low in the stack in the melee anyway. Including a missile unit, but also another unit that wasn't missile. Okay, but the attacker can withhold however many units he wants from the combat. And that means, like, if I attack with just, you know, the top of my stack, nothing further than that will get hurt. But the defender can retreat with everything except he has to leave a covering force. Now, that covering force, in this case, has to be at least 1/6 of the combat factor total of the attacking units that are fighting in the melee. Which to me means there's no advantage to the attacker putting his whole stack into play. I was thinking, if you throw your whole stack in, you might be able to cut retreats off, which would actually make some sense to me. And I would do that. But up here it defines how many units... Oh wait, no. Any of the attacking units... Yeah. I think the entire stack may fight, which makes it make sense. It's just the results. I'm trying to find where it states that only the top 3 get to fire. Now, see, at most 3 of the major units in each stack can fight in the melee. So, unfortunately for me, though, there's a fairly big unit there. So if I count, I think I've got my big guys on top. There's 32, 38 strength points attacking me. 6th of that means I'm going to need to leave at least 7 strength points behind. Now, I'd rather not lose my missile units. They're kind of useful. Actually, I would rather take a missile unit as the shot there. So if I've got to leave 7, why don't I leave, 13? And I'll take my withdrawal with the missile units, make sure they don't get wiped out, and just pull back towards a lone. And now I'm going to be resolving the attacks. Now here I'm being attacked from more than one hex, so I've got a bigger retreat profile I've got to take here. So this is 10. 14, 18, 23, 27. I was counting the leadership in there. 30. It's actually a much smaller number though, so I don't have the superhero there. So 30 divided by 6 means I only have to leave 5 in place. And you know what? The advantage of the attacker is so great in this game that's exactly what I think I'm going to leave in place. But I'm going to leave it in place with crappier troops because I can do more damage with the little ones. Notably, I had too many pieces here to seek defense inside the stockade. I'm not sure if I gave the stockade defensive bonus here. I'm pretty sure I put. It's been since last night, so it's hard to remember. All right, I'll resolve these and come back, but they look like they're going to be Sartor victories. The object here is to attrition the Sartors enough and then be able to make a stand somewhere and just hold out as long as you can. The problem, of course, is whatever you attrition probably isn't that big a deal. They've got so many units and they've got this huge advantage of the leaders that allow them to pretty much win those battles. And this combat system is very random. It ends up, they didn't take this. They only did 5 points to this, but they did the full 38 of their strength points to this stack and took it. Not sure if I'm allowed to do a blitzkrieg type advance with the zones of control there. I would have to look that up, but I don't want to look everything up every time. If you're familiar with how I play, you know I hate looking at the rolls as much as possible. So that's the Sartor advance there. And now, the Lunars have to kind of try to decide how to respond to this, try to get their units out. Their units aren't going to rally until the end of their player phase. So I think there's a Sartor damaged unit, though, that I think it was just the destroyed. All right. With the way fortresses and zones work, I'm launching attacks against these 2 units, but not against this. This is inside a stockade fortress. I pulled back with everything around the hero. I tried to look at the points, and I can get about 27 points on him. That means on a 4 or higher, I would knock him out, maybe. He's a superhero. He'll probably survive it. So it seems like a lot of effort to be there, but the problem is I've got these disrupted units that are exposed. They don't move as fast. Now, when they're retreating, though, that's not a good example, but these guys have a movement rate of 6, so they don't have to leave behind a covering force if they're faster than everything that's attacking them. The problem is, well, the superhero, for example, is faster than they are, so he'll be able to run up and prevent their retreat. Doesn't have to be a major unit to block that. These aren't just leaders. These are real, fantasy superheroes. All right. I've got some missile fire. I put up a whole load of it here. Let's take another look at how that works. it's not too exciting, but so I've only got 4 points of missile fire there, and I don't have any bonuses or any penalties due to terrain there. And I get lucky, I get the disruption I want it, which means my attack is going to be more likely to succeed. I'll take care of the couple of actual attacks. We're both successful. There was no real opportunity to retreat in them. These guys are going to be able to, I think, do this. Not sure if that's terribly valuable. I should look up about those advances. I'll be back if that's a mistake. I have to stop. The zone still is in effect there. That's kind of problematic because I'm out in the plains here. I can run away if just infantry or some of the slower cav attacks me. But there's some fast units or Gunda, so that could be easy pickoffs. Problem is, Sartor's under a time limit here. They gotta take the 2 territories, the 2 castles in 5 turns total. And that's gonna be a hard job, I think. I kind of like how the stacking works in this, in the sense that you can put whatever you want in a hex, but only a few units are gonna count. So it ends up, you know, you end up with these spread out forces. This is not something you usually see in most fantasy games, but there's something else here that you don't usually see in most games, period, which is, well, first of all, there's this tremendous advantage to the attack, which is weird, and I understand it to some extent because the concept of how to attack this line is not trivial to me. So I can hit it over on the side, over here, and get some pretty good odds and probably wipe it out from these 2 spaces and these 2 spaces. Problem is I have this time limit. I only have 3 more turns to get these. So of course, you know, if I can slip around or something, that would be cool. At least position a threat here that undermines this line and forces it to fall back. Because I don't think what I don't think I can do, although maybe I'm mistaken. And again, this is this is a weird combat system, and I'm glad I'm taking the time to play out more than one scenario of it to get kind of a feel for it. I'm just not sure, you know, can I launch, should I be doing these outflanks, or should I just launch a frontal assault on the damn thing? And it's hard to analyze what is essentially a firepower type table with this attack table, where you're looking at the strength and then rolling to see what proportion. It's also such a random table that you don't know what your results are going to be at all. They could be hugely varying. So if you get only a 1/6 result against a reasonable sized, like equally sized force, it's going to hit you back with as hard an opportunity as you have. Now, if they're sitting in some sort of terrain where they take even less losses, they may actually be able to do quite well. It feels to me like making 1-to-1 attacks is worthwhile in general, just because you get the first swing in, but you're going to take losses. Anyway, I'm going to try to distribute and figure out what I want to put in place. I have a vague idea of what's in each stack, but I can't actually look through them and try to generate odds, which is fine. It's a firepower table. Odds don't matter that much. One quickie though, at the end of the lunar phase was a rally phase. So some of these disrupted units become undisrupted. Interesting little results. The missile fire did nothing, essentially. Some withdrawals before combat, here and here, just to get the excess. 3 units is enough. You know, you never want to defend with more than 3 as far as I'm concerned, if you can avoid it. But that should be pretty easy, unless you're being overrun, essentially, because you only need a 1/6 of the combat strength you're facing. Now this big ass stack, this can pretty much take whatever it likes. That's what we've seen with it. Now when you're defending, you know, your victory centers, those you might want more than 3 units, just so that you can last out the turns as you're getting wiped out there. But in terms of just positional stuff, you know, why lose more strength points? So especially when you're retreating fairly weak stuff. But yeah, this guy can pretty much plow through any 3 units in his stack. These guys attacked combined. They didn't advance into here because that would deform my line. I could have advanced these guys, actually. We'll do that. These guys would have deformed the line, but I forgot these guys attacked. There was actually absolutely no effect here. Both got really bad rolls and weren't able to do any damage. You know what? The Lunars actually could have withdrawn here. They have all speed 5 units they could have pulled out and not even taken the disadvantage of first shot. For what that's worth. Now, you know, this falling back defensive line, this is what has to be done. I've got to try to play this out for as much as I can. I think it's going to be tough for Sartre to meet their historical success of taking everything. But we'll see. Really easy targets. The Lunars have decided to fall back. Now, here, I'm still providing some zone of control to prevent a quick advance on Elda Chor. But here I've just swarmed everything into a lone. The reason for that is a dwarf there? We'll get to that in another scenario. The reason for that is that this gives me a little bit of delaying action, but here I would have been placing units right here, which essentially doesn't gain me anything at all. Does this? Yeah, it sort of does because of the position of it. Now, of course, if there's anything fast enough that could go 9 here, or a hero that could take this all at once, it would be potentially an issue, but it really isn't in this circumstance. So I think this is my safest setup. I could have defended here, but the defenses of the fortress are stronger. The advantage to defending here was that I could create sort of a line between these two mountain spaces. But then the attacker can just pick one and get enough frontage against it that they could actually get a pretty advantageous attack anyway, about as good as they're going to get against a lone. So that's where I am there, and we'll push forward to turn 4. And we'll see if we can get this all in one. Load that vid about some thinking here about all these archers here. Wow, they're going to cause problems. Now, I can segment them if I'm attacked from multiple hexes and fire some of my archers into one hex and some into another. But that's going to really disrupt any attempt to attack alone. So that's kind of a factor. I don't think there are any archers on this side of the board, so this is going to be much easier. It's just going to be a reduction atmosphere. But with only 2 turns left, the Sartres better get their asses in gear and do what they can. Fire had little or no effect. We got an injury down here, but we've got some massive attacks basically to clear the road to Altachur. That should fall pretty easily next turn. And there's not much, if I can clear these out of the way cleanly, that can be done about that, except for terrible luck, for example, that won't allow it to fall. Alone, though, looks much scarier. That's a big stack. That's going to be hard to eliminate. We'll see. The one thing, most of the missile fire has been against things in the mountains, which gives a -2. So that's part of why you're not seeing a lot of effect there. All right, let's do these attacks. Attack on alone is pretty important, so I'm going to do this first. There's 42 strength points attacking. More than that. 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49. 50 strength points attacking. And the troops in alone have decided to stack some of their weaker units on top, so there's more chance that their heavier units will get a counterattack. So 50 strength points, the die roll, I do 50. Well, that's going to pretty much wipe everything out now. In the fortress, everything's doubled. So 6, 12, 18, 26, 34, 38, 42, 50. There ain't much left. It looks like Alone's going to fall next turn pretty clearly. I'll go try to take care of these. I should take care of the counterattack from here. It's just going to be 6 points coming back. And if I got to hit both these hexes, which means units in here are going to take, what, 1.5 casualties? No, 2 times casualties as well, just like the fortress does. So what did I say? 6. Alright, well, I do 6 points of damage, which is kind of sweet. That'll be one of these infantry. But still, it's not. No, it won't be one of those infantry. It's not allowed to be. I've got to select from the top of the stacks, and this is the only one I can hit. It's at even, so I do 4, and now I have nothing I can hit, because this guy's big 20 protects him. Sorry about that. This defensive space in the mountain held out. There were no casualties. There were only like 17 points hitting it here. This is beginning to look like it might just hold out. No, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, let's see. I can get a hero that way. These troops aren't going to be able to get around. I think the Lunars have won this one. The only problem... No, they haven't. Because the problem is I can't stay here or I'll have to attack these. Ouch. I could hope for the same kind of odds, you know, I don't get hurt. This isn't very powerful. That may be my best option. Let's go with it. So this game is degenerated into a little geometrical puzzle. I can move a leader up to here. These guys aren't going to make it. 3, 4, 5, whatever. There's going to be a zone there. So I'll just throw them in against that. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I can get my big guy up there. And I can get these other kind of heroic guys in there. How did I get in there? Oh, this isn't adjacent. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wait, 1. I don't know if I could get there. 1, 2, 3, 4. No. 1, 2. Now I stop using heroic movement. 3, 4, 5, 6. Nah, I'm not going to be able to get there. This. So I don't think I could get my big guy there. How did I get him there? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. He wasn't going to make it. I can get this up there. That'll help. And then I guess we'll launch what attacks we can. I may make some shifting over to try to make a lone more easy to get. But you know, this reminds me of an ASL little scenario, or like I said, some of the Victory Point games or stuff. A lot of the old Avalon Hill games where you just are faced with this one geometric puzzle. Can you get to the location and put the adequate strength on it? And those don't thrill me too much. I'm not expecting that the full game, as we get into some of the other scenarios, is going to feel as much that way. But we're able to break through this little roadblock here. Killed one of the units, but even on the 36 table, I think it was, I did like 12 points of damage. Well, each of these is times 1.5, so this costs 7.5 for the first one to go. The second one doesn't go. Let's take a look at this. 20, 32, 41. I get to count these in. 47. And 6 is 53. I got more than that. 6 more, 59. That should pretty much wipe it out. Well, you never know. A quarter of 59 is going to be more than 10, but these guys are doubled. Let's see, 59 divided by 4. I'm really bad at this number. It's like, what, 14? Sounds right. Okay, 14. So 4, 8, 12. There's actually still going to be someone there too. It's a tough scenario for Sartor, it turns out. Now maybe if I had all my stuff right up against the border early, because some of it had to work its way up. And now this is ugly because I'm using 2 heroes, and Only 8 strength points attacking. That's not going to do. That's not going to take the area. I wouldn't make an attack like this except the, oh, I must win the game, you know, if I possibly can, but I don't think I could. That's going to be 6 hits. Now these guys are fortress, so they're doubled, so they take nothing. And then they get to attack back. I probably would have stacked them like this. I didn't really worry about that. So that's 13 on the table. And they only do 3. They're not going to even kill a hero. So that's the end of it. Lunar's managed to hold off the quick strike to take everything back. And that might mean that, you know, you're going to see some lunar reinforcements coming in, etc. I don't know what the next scenario is. There's going to be more rules for it. We'll work our way forward.